He was born a prince, but died without a crown. The fourth son of a king, a warrior who commanded armies across two kingdoms, a man who held more wealth than the crown itself. John of Gaunt was never meant to rule England. But here's the twist. His blood would wear every crown in Europe for the next 6 centuries. You think you know what makes a legendary knight? Forget it. This is the story of a man who rewrote the rules of power, changed the course of history, and became more influential dead than most kings ever were alive.
March 1340. Ghent, Flanders. A baby boy enters the world during a military campaign. His father, Edward III of England, is too busy waging war to attend the birth. His mother, Queen Philippa, names him after his birthplace, John of Gaunt. The English will mangle it into Gaunt. He's the fourth son. In medieval terms, that's a disaster. The eldest gets the throne. The second gets land. The third gets church positions. The fourth gets whatever's left, if he's lucky. But luck isn't what defined John of Gaunt. Ambition was. Growing up in the greatest court in Europe, young John watched his older brothers train for greatness. His brother Edward, the Black Prince, became the ultimate medieval warrior. John wanted that glory too. At 10 years old, he was already training with real weapons. By 13, he'd witnessed his first battle. By 19, he was a knight commanding men who'd fought longer than he'd been alive. The royal court taught him something crucial. Power isn't inherited. It's seized.
1359. John is 19. His father launches another invasion of France. John rides with him. This isn't ceremony. This is war. The Reims campaign fails, but John learns what books can't teach: how armies move, how alliances break, how men die when strategy fails. Then comes his golden ticket. Through marriage to Blanche of Lancaster, he doesn't just get a wife, he gets the richest estate in England outside the royal family. Overnight, the fourth son becomes the wealthiest noble in the realm. He takes the title Duke of Lancaster, but here's what matters. He takes the power that comes with it. 30 castles, lands across 13 counties, an income that rivals the king's. At 22, John of Gaunt commands resources that would make other nobles weep with envy, and he's just getting started. 1371. Blanche dies. John is devastated, but he's also strategic. He marries Constance of Castile. Why? Because she's the daughter of the deposed King of Castile. Through her, John claims the throne of an entire kingdom. For the next 16 years, he calls himself King of Castile and Leon. He never actually rules Spain, but he fights for it, plots for it, negotiates for it. This isn't delusion. It's medieval power politics at its finest. 1386. John finally invades Spain with an army. They march through Portugal. The heat is unbearable. Disease ravages the troops. The Spanish forces refuse to engage in open battle. It's a disaster. But John doesn't return empty-handed. He negotiates a brilliant compromise. His daughter Catalina will marry the heir to Castile. His blood will sit on the Spanish throne even if he never does. That's the Gaunt genius. If you can't take the crown, marry into it. 1376. Everything changes. The Black Prince, John's heroic older brother, dies. 1 year later, King Edward III dies. The crown passes to a 10-year-old boy, Richard II. Suddenly, John of Gaunt is the most powerful man in England. He's not king, but he's the closest thing to it. As the boy king's uncle, John effectively runs the government. He commands the armies, controls the treasury, makes the decisions that matter. The nobles hate him for it. The common people hate him even more. Why? Because someone needs to pay for England's endless wars. John raises taxes. He protects unpopular policies. He becomes the lightning rod for every grievance in the kingdom. 1381. The peasants' revolt erupts. Thousands of rebels march on London. Their target? John of Gaunt. They storm his London palace, the Savoy, and burn it to the ground. They execute anyone associated with him. They chant for his head. John barely escapes with his life. He's in Scotland when it happens, negotiating a truce. Timing saves him. The Savoy burns for days. Everything John owned, treasure, documents, furniture, turns to ash. The rebels even throw his valuables into the Thames rather than steal them. It's not about robbery, it's about rage. But here's the remarkable part. John doesn't seek revenge. When the revolt is crushed, he advocates for mercy. He could have executed thousands. Instead, he pushes for pardons. Why? Because John of Gaunt understands something other nobles don't. Power without stability is worthless.
Throughout his marriages, John keeps a mistress, Katherine Swynford. She's his children's governess, nowhere near his social class. But John doesn't care. Their affair lasts decades and produces 4 children, the Beauforts. These illegitimate children should mean nothing. Bastards don't inherit crowns. But John does something unprecedented. After his second wife dies, he marries Catherine. Then he petitions the Pope and the King to legitimize their children retroactively. It works. The Beauforts become legitimate nobility. Here's why that matters. Through the Beaufort line, John's blood will eventually produce Henry VII, who founds the Tudor dynasty. His scandal becomes the foundation of England's most famous royal house. Every English monarch from 1485 onward descends from John of Gaunt's love affair with a commoner.
As John ages, his influence somehow grows. He becomes the elder statesman, the negotiator, the man who holds the kingdom together while others fight for scraps. 1390s. While King Richard II becomes increasingly tyrannical and unstable, John remains loyal. He could seize the throne. He has the power, the wealth, the support, but he doesn't. Why? Perhaps he learned from a lifetime of watching power destroy those who grasp too eagerly. Perhaps he genuinely believes in legitimate succession. Or perhaps he knows his son Henry will have a better chance than he ever would. 1399. John of Gaunt dies at Leicester Castle. He's 58. He's been Duke of Lancaster for nearly 40 years. He's fought in wars across 3 countries. He's survived rebellions, plagues, and political intrigue that would have destroyed weaker men. But his story doesn't end with his death. It's just beginning.
Months after John dies, his son, Henry Bolingbroke, deposes Richard II and becomes Henry IV. John's blood wears the English crown after all. But that's just England. Through his children and strategic marriages, John of Gaunt's descendants spread across Europe like a royal virus. Spanish monarchs, John's bloodline through his daughter Catalina. Portuguese kings, his daughter Philippa marries John I of Portugal. The houses of York and Lancaster that tear England apart in the Wars of the Roses, both descend from John of Gaunt. The Tudors, his Beaufort line. Every British monarch since 1399 descends from him. So does every Spanish monarch from 1516 onward. The current royal families of Britain, Spain, Belgium, Luxembourg, and Norway
all carry his blood. John of Gaunt achieved something no conqueror ever did. He won Europe through genealogy.
Here's what makes John fascinating. He was brilliant at nearly everything except being loved. He was an incapable military commander, but not a legendary warrior like his brother. He was immensely rich, but spent most of it on failed campaigns. He was politically shrewd, but widely despised by common people. His palace was burned by rebels. His ambitions for Spain never materialized. His time as England's power broker ended with his nephew trying to strip his son of inheritance. Yet none of it mattered, because John of Gaunt played a longer game than anyone else realized. While other nobles fought for immediate power, he built a dynasty. While others secured land, he secured bloodlines. He kept detailed records. He patronized Geoffrey Chaucer, giving England its greatest medieval poet. He spoke fluent French and Castilian. He collected books when most nobles collected weapons. He had a terrible temper but learned to control it. He loved deeply, 3 times, in an era when royal marriages were pure strategy. He protected his children fiercely, legitimate and illegitimate alike. And he understood the one truth that defines his entire life. Sometimes the greatest power is the power to make others powerful.
You came here expecting the story of a knight. What you got was the story of a king who never wore a crown, but changed history more than most who did. John of Gaunt commanded armies, married princesses, survived rebellions, and turned his scandalous love affair into a royal dynasty that would rule for centuries. The 4th son, who was never meant to matter, became the ancestor of kings.